We're reading across Pirush Rahut. No Pirush Rahut, just reading the words of the Rav, as quoted by Reb Shmuel Vital. So he was doing Torah mitzvahs, so he was praying. Ein ata yarech b'pachad min haklipos. Ki b'vadei ata lo yuchlo lihisase b'acharayim and niskarim. V'os choyubo inyan in the Sira. So then, as a result of this, the mitzvah is doing, and the Sira took place. V'chazaras paneh b'paneh k'moshe she'avar be'ez Hashem, and I'm going to explain that. He goes on to say the Inyan who, so the Inyan is like this. 1 second. So I get something here to help me. There we go. So the Inyan who, he says, Moshe Kusam Techavidecha B'Techidus Drush, Shem Ada B'Rishon Lo Choya Choytecha B'Eit Zedas B'Yom Shishi Koshe Nivra, Shehu Yom Rosh Hashanah, V'gam Choya Mis'achar Umamtim Zugo Ad Leil Shabbos, Hoyagam Zivug Zer Anpin V'Nuk B'Chidas Paneh B'Chidas Paneh B'Paneh Na'ase B'Yom Shabbos Kodesh. V'hoya Halamas N'Sharcha B'Tikunach B'Makom B'Tzios B'Rishon Kaimet Talmud, it would have been permanent. Because Shecha V'Chotach B'Eit Zadas, but that mistake. Umizech B'Nimsha Gam Kain Shenizdaveg Bo B'Yom Shechoyachol. So then it's a weekday. He has the yichud. V'Hidach B'Nimsa Atach B'Shnei Chafachim. He said one is a Rishon, who Masha Chatach Kanizkas the Chet itself. V'Shein Hicha Mitzvahs Masha Asach B'Chatfilah She's Paul Kanizka, that what happened to all the work that he was doing up to that time. The mitzvahs of the tefillah, so looking at it in that way, Garam Tikkun B'Kol Olomos, he had caused the Tikkun all the way from the Ein Sof Baruch Hu down to the lower worlds. V'gam Zivog Zun B'Yomahu, everything would have been aligned. The mitzvah the Chet Shechata Kanizka, but besides that, Garam the Kilkul B'Olam V'gam B'Zivog Zav V'Nuk, so that he caused a Kilkul. It could be looked into much more what he means by the kilkul. Bolan v'gam b'zivug zav v'nuk, v'hu ki lo niskayim b'tikun v'chazivug ahu, because they did not perform the proper yichud. Elo d'fi shah, only it was a momentary thing. Kashi his palal, so there was a yichud while he was praying. Amnam achar kach niskalkul d'cha b'cholomos, but then the corruption came into the world. V'nisbato zivug elyon. Shabbos Bereshis, even on the day of Shabbos itself. Shalach Yom Hashishi, because after the 6th day was over, Shehu Rosh Hashanah, Lo Na'as Zivug, there was no further yichud. It is Acher Zivugim Ad Yom Shmini Atzeres, and it was put off all the way to Shmini Atzeres. Gamoshe Yisboyer La'el B'Techid. So Drush, as we explained this later on, we see as the day of the massacre took place. They called the October 7th massacre, took place on Shmini Atzeres. Od Bir Be'inyan in the Sira, so I'm not sure what the meaning of that is, but it's not good. Zecha v'nach zecha devoyer inyan in the Sira. Hine achash nivra ala berisha v'his pala v'asa mitzvahs, v'hoyu koras haklipos, v'lo hoyu cholas l'chem his achas ba'osam achraim oz ba inyan in the Sira. So normally in the proper order, then would come the separation. V'inyan hui ki kol osam achraim v'chadinim shehem b'zochar. So all of this, Kulin and Nasru, all of them are removed, physically removed from him, and his pardum and his zachar and separated. Vanita and Kulin ba'acharayim shalo, and all of them wind up on his backside. Vayidei kain nifsradis v'nisrachakah mimenu, so this way she becomes nisfrada, she becomes separated. And distance mimenu v'az hazan neshar kula bebechinas chesed, he remains completely like chesed because of his gevuros leave. V'hi bebechinas dinim gevuros shalal v'shalal, so she has all dinim. V'amnam Indian the siras v'dechiyas dinim elu ma'achre zer anpen litnem ba'acharayim the nekeva. Hu na'asa ayidei ha'chesed ha'elyon shel imei law. Now, apparently, this is an important idea. The chesed of imei law. Now, that's in the middle third of the gufa de ima, so to speak. The sod pasa v'ish ki yikak es achoso. Man, it takes his sister. What's this all about? Chesed hu. That's a chesed. He says it's a chesed. So he has to define this. Ki b'koach a chesed ninasrach v'zun, from the koach of that chesed of ima that's coming from ima. This causes the nesirah on nikroim ish v'achoso, and the nesirah is called a man with his sister. V'isparesh gezach betata mitata la'ela shehim acharayim shadachem shenifredu, which are their backsides that separated. V'yedei came lo koch lo la'isha. He then turns around and he could take her for a wife, or a mate. V'dav upon him, and a yichud ultimately would result upon him. So he says, "O pirisha inyan hu ki noidu hu shabiyosa adam yashem v'layda dishmasa oila for show evis lo chaim melamala," and that's what he wants to say. It draws chaim from up above. Keniska bepirke Rebbe Eliezer. V'heina inyan bezeh. So the same thing is true of Zer Anpin. He says he bepiyos yashem when he's sleeping. Nishar bo haku kista dekiyasa. There's some small life force inside of him. Kenizgaretz later bebirchus of mapil hevle. He said v'nishmaso shenestalka, and then his neshama, which is leaving, lamala choiser mosheves lo chaim. She would bound for him, will draw for him chaim bebechinas osa hachesed shal iba v'chaim mispashet bo bekulo, and it's spread completely throughout him. Now this is the chesed that's coming from the chagat of ima. Also dinim al shecha b'achra, which is, I guess, like thinking about it, it's a makif. Also hadinim asher b'achra choya nifradim v'ninasrim me'olechem, and this causes the nesira. V'nim shachim v'nidbakim v'nidbakim b'achrecha nekeva, and all of those dinim now go to her as a result of the interest of this chesed, which is coming from the chagat of ima. He says, al pasa v'yisgor basar tachtano. So then the place of the incision is closed up. V'asrosh kakir rachmeh v'chesed. V'asroh, so he says, shakia rachmeh v'chesed. This comes in to her bad side. I think that's what it means. Pirish. Since they're no longer with him, al achrech on the kever, and it goes over to the backside of the nook. Why does this happen? This happens because inside of it, now this is a little contradiction to the way I was trying to explain it, about talking about the chagat, which is really a makif in regards, it's the lama de makif. It's the, that's why I said, he said, but here he said, this pashtas b'chidas hachesed b'socho, so this is pashtas into him. V'kol mashachoy mispasha v'yora the chesed, and the more that this chesed came further down, choy dinim mistalkim, it pushed the dinim out. Ma'achra v'nishar hachesed the rachamim shakuyim. Now we find that chesed and rachamim are planted inside b'makom shachoy yusham dinim b'dehilo. So basically, the chesed from a higher power, which is the chagat of ima, is able to push out the dinim, and as a result of that, as it spreads through Zer Anpin, that's actually the force that causes her to pick up all these dinim. V'od narchiv bir be'inin the nesira the command, but drush shal nesira, and we're going to talk about the drush of the nesira then, and in the seres basari yemei tshuva, because it's not over on Rosh Hashanah, continues on. So now we go to the V'ata Nevar Mach Sheyadanu La'el. Let me bring this back here. Being the Ma'aber B'Shechah B'Parsh Tetzaveh. Let's say over there. B'Masha Ne'em B'Chakasav Yehi Shem B'Shem Mevorach. So that let the name of Hashem be blessed. He says that the word shame, he says Ki Hinei B'Chaseres Yemei Tshuva. Negmeres Malachas the Nesira. This is actually where the conclusion of the Nesira ultimately takes place. his chalasa, he min ha'acharaim, the keser de zah, comes from the backside of the keser of zah. V'nitnach bekeser de nuk, so a keser de keser. V'bechila zichov shal nesiris a keser, na'ases biyom rishon shal Rosh Hashanah, it comes on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, uv'yom hazeh kol dinim shebekeser chazachar nitnen bekeser ha'nekeva. It says, so Yehi Shem Hashem Mevorach. What does that mean? Shehi Hamalchus Nikra Shem Hashem. She's called by the word name. She's a name more designated than the name Yudke Vavke. She is the name of Hashem, which means the place that they to come together. Yehi Bevorach, let it be blessed. Now he says, so, which I messed up yesterday a little bit. He says that this word mevorach is interesting, he says, is back to that drush he said before. He says that it's membet. Now, there's more explanation needed. I understand membet as like the ana b'koach, is the ability to be able to move from dimension to dimension upwards. He says that mab is, he has the word mevorach begins with the word mab, gematria 42. Kenoida ki shem ben mab hu barosh. So he says this is at the top. Now, that requires more understanding on my part, but when I'm moving along, Knizker b'sefer hatikunim and tikunayin. V'hu inyan the dinim anitnim, so this is the inyan of the dinim that are placed b'reisha the nukba v'yom hazeh. He said, Nikra shem ben mab shuhu gevura kanoided. Once again, he says that mab is a gevura. So he said, Amdam Seife rock. So the last letters of that word mevorach are the word rock. This is part of that same drush we saw earlier. Kashinesalem is the klok osam adinim. Haditznaser men adam min hazachar kulam. So which you see that they're all left him. Ein bob od maliten. He doesn't have more to give her inside of him. So she's coming to be very powerful strength. Bekadmisa, like at the beginning, I don't know what that means at the beginning. Calls the man shalokeches dinim in his she keeps getting stronger. Shlima the poil is a dinim shekam the mimena. So when she's actually going to act on those dinim that she receives from him, ein ba od malit, then she doesn't have anything else in there to give. V'chalchish hilah, and we saw her strength wanes. V'arei rock, and that's the idea that she first is very bright, and then it starts getting weaker. Avachas zakar enu kain. The male is not like that. Let's get back to here. He says kain ki hu enu tzarek l'zulah, so he is self-functioning. He doesn't need somebody to give him anything. That's not 100% true. And so the fact is that he continues and gets stronger, and the opposite is true, that at the beginning he's soft, v'seifek kasha. Now that's a steer from something else that he said elsewhere. So what do we got here? So let me go on. So let me explain this Maimer, which really, I guess, is in Machloket there. It says the opposite. The dinim and nukva nachim bereisha, they start off nice and sweet, but they get really harsh at the end. That's what the Sifra Tzniuta said. But that's the stira is the Inyan is like this. It's talking about the quality of the dinim themselves, which is a lower element of Zer Anpin, which is where you would find the outer rings, let's say, so to speak, the outer part of Zer Anpin, which is exposed to the kali. So the dinim, that's where the dinim comes from. Now, what's in that nai originally comes and becomes part of the mochin that's going to be in the nukva. So going on, he says, but if you look at the nai of the nukva, ain od parts of acher b'chatzilus tachtecha, she has nobody, no other parts of in yitzilus to be able to mashpia to la'asos bo besod mochin, to become mochin for it. V'nimsaki dinim delay heim shehem anai shabat tekifim b'sofa, that they're very strong at the end. Aber b'parshat tetzaveh over there, ein medaber bechinas dinim ba'atzmas. They're talking about the dinim. The dinim are strong at the very end of the kifim when you come to the nook. Like right now, we're in Elul. But actually, it's what she gets from him. While she's still getting the transfer from him. These are the really, really difficult dinim of the sofa. But then what happens is, there's nothing left to get. So over here, we're only talking about what it's like for the nook. Who, when she's receiving the dinim, she's getting more and more din-like. But we're not talking about the dinim that are in her. It's what the reaction to her as she starts to get more and more of the Nesira take place in the dinim. So Menachza, the Indian Rishon, let's go back to the first idea here. He says, "V'inyan Machloket Rebbe Eliezer, Rebbe Yehoshua, shenechtahu im b'nisan nivra ha'olam, o im b'tishrei nivra ha'olam." The Kavarn is bar la'el beer. So we've already said some explanation on this. Beer Machloktam ma'inyanim. We talked about this. So then, how is it possible? There's theories. So actually, there's no argument. Bir hagdamas idris hazinu. When he came out, he had 3 different times. Zaman Iva Rishon v'oz koy bebechid tlas klila v'tlas. Zaman ha'unika v'oz mispashet devak. Zaman Iva shaded the tzorach hamochen the godless. Kamosha daticha b'drush tefillin. Now, exactly this. What exactly was the conclusion of that? Keeping going. V'hinei v'shtei bechinas yesh b'zer anpin. Ha'echad hu b'bechinas kitzoniuso. Shehu klal mitzius olamos, which is talking about the physical reality of the universes. V'asheni hu b'pnimiuso. Shehu sod haneshamos, which is the concept of which we've been playing with this idea, neshamos, which is penimius. V'hinei b'kol bechinas me'elach hashtayim, so as it agro shlosha zemanim and iskarim. Those 3 different times of Iver Unika and Iver Sheni. Kibet Echida B'choyed Ezer Ampesh Shloshas Asmanim and Iskarim. Shall Iver Rishon. To shall Unika. Shall Iver Sheni the Mochen the Godless. Because Zecha B'Bechida Kitzonius. And all this had to do with the idea of Kitzonius. V'achar Choyed Ezer Od Pam B'cheres. Then there was another time. Shaloshas Hazamanim and his kind bebechinas epidemius. So these 3 times have to do with his epidemius. Kulam was like that everywhere. Ki yesh bechem kitzonius epidemius. Rebbe Eliezer, Rebbe Yehoshua, Mar Ayre bebechinas kitzonius. So actually, he says that this way you could look at it. That one of the rabbis is talking about the kitzonius, which would be what? Who called Klaus Olomos, which refers to all of the worlds, the physicality of them. So how does this work, this Machloket out? Below Peligi, but they're not really arguing, they're talking about different aspects of reality. Because from this we see that the Nook is therefore going to be Menaser. But in this aspect, then you see the Zachar enters first, which would be Tishrei. So Prata, I didn't really get into this, he says. So what is the aspect? Is it the Chitzonius, the Penimius, that affects the Nukva at the beginning? The Be'ezah Bechinah Niknas Azachar B'Techila, and exactly where this starts. So we'll stop right here. We'll see if I can get in a little shtickle shear. We have till 22 still. It looks like that the year is kind of, what would you say, balancing